Hi and welcome to the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast for athletes, coaches and professionals who want to achieve their goals faster. I'm David Charlton and I'll be sharing proven methods from leading athletes, coaches and experts that will help you get the most from your talent. Today's show is sponsored by Functional Intelligent Training, who are a sports injury clinic located in Gosforth near Newcastle upon Tyne and specialise in athlete development, nurturing future champions, strength and conditioning support and excellent rehabilitation services. Hi everyone, today's episode is a little bit different. I've decided to put together the best bits from the first 9 episodes. That way I'm hoping you'll leave with some motivation so that you can go on and achieve your goals faster, as well as having more awareness of exactly what mental toughness is all about. So in this episode, you're going to hear from Doug Strycharczyk, Steve Judge, Peter Ramage, Chris Paisley, Toby Flood, Brendan Pearson and Andy Paisley. Mental toughness is often misunderstood. Would you agree with that, Doug?
Oh, that's very much the case, David. Much less so than when we started in 2002. In 2002, people looked at that term toughness and said, oh, that sounds macho, sounds very masculine. Well, it isn't about being macho and it isn't about being masculine. Just to kill one myth, we know that the mental toughness profiles for men and women are virtually identical. So it's definitely not a male concept. It seems to apply equally. Well, it does apply equally to males and females. But the essence of it is really the word mental. This is about how we respond mentally to things that happen to us. So it's about our mindset, our mental responses. It isn't about being macho or tough in that sense of the word. It's about being tough in the resilient sense of the word. And it's important. It's always been important. It's probably especially important at this time because we're more concerned usually about our mental responses at times of stress, pressure, crisis and chaos. And pretty much that's where we are right at the moment. But it's always important.
You know, and it's around that time when my surgeon came round and he told me that the operation had been successful, but because of the severity of my injuries on both my legs, there's a high possibility that I may never walk again. And I think when somebody gives you information like that, it's very much a fight or flight. And the flight being I could just roll over in bed and just give in. And the opposite being, I can remember being really angry and furious that somebody had the audacity to say that to me. I guess that's the fight inside me. I don't like it when people tell me that I can't do things. When you have something so special, something that you take for granted, like walking and standing and walking, to have that taken away from you, to have that stolen from you, is a horrible feeling. And at that point, I realised that I was ready to fight. And I say that because deep inside I did, but I had absolutely zero energy. And my legs were trash. You know, I'll try and explain, but my left leg had been ripped apart at the knee. So the 4 ligaments that hold your knee together, like the big rubber bands, they'd been ripped out. My right leg had been partially amputated. What that means is that in my calf, in the bottom bone, the tibia bone, 4 inches of that had been knocked out and thrown away. So they seized it together and put a big metal cage around it. But my leg was literally 4 inches shorter than my left leg. A massive difference. So I was told it was going to be my responsibility to twist nuts and bolts in this cage, slowly stretch my leg out a millimetre a day over the course of about 100 days to get it to the right length. That's what I had to do.
As you've progressed through the academy and going on to make your debut, what sort of setbacks, challenges did you have to overcome during that period?
You know, I was training week in, week out and day out with the first team at that time. That was an education in itself and learning to deal with Craig Bellamy, calling you all sorts of names under the sun, Kieran Dyer, you know, Alan Shearer, top class stars, you know, these kind of players, training with them and as a young kid making mistakes and learning from them and learning from these guys was obviously a challenge as well. There's a lot being said over the years about obviously Bellas and Kieran and things like that, but the one thing that they wanted from us young kids was to know that they could trust us when we went on the field, because obviously at the end of the day these were top class international stars who wanted to win every week. And if they had a kid who couldn't rise to the occasion, like you just said there, and it was going to affect them potentially. It was going to affect them maybe getting in their international or their respective international squads. So, you know, it's if you can deal with Craig Bellamy and Kieran Dyer shouting at you day in, day out, then you can deal with 52,000 shouting at you. You know, and that was the mental test for me in particular. And
I found even when I wasn't playing well, I was still trying to hit perfect shots and trying to swing it perfectly. And I'd almost have this stubbornness. You know, usually I like to hit a nice kind of a soft draw with my driver. And sometimes when my swing's a bit out, I struggle to hit that because I get a bit stuck. And if I try and hit that shot, I can kind of hit it all over the place. But I'd stubbornly try and hit this kind of perfect high draw, even though I kind of didn't really have it in my locker.
So I'm going to assume that you're goal orientated. You set goals for yourself. You like chasing those goals. When you have setbacks, when there's obstacles, it doesn't worry you so much. You're able to keep on going and persevering. Yet other elements of mental toughness may come into play. One of the elements is learning orientation. And just because you're really committed, really, really motivated, and if you find yourself low in this element of learning orientation, you might be someone doesn't learn from your mistakes. You may repeat mistakes on a regular basis. You might not take the time out to actually reflect on your approach and question yourself. And I'm pretty sure whether you're a footballer or a golfer or an athlete across any sport, you'll have come across these scenarios where you have got comfortable, you haven't been honest with yourself, you haven't challenged yourself for periods. You know, maybe your game's been in good nick for a period of time, or you've been comfortable picking up your wages or a decent salary. You haven't asked hard, difficult questions of yourself, and perhaps your support team, your coaches around you, their focus has been taken up by other things in their life or in their coaching, so they haven't fully challenged you too. Or often, especially in team sports or in the business world, because you're one of many in a squad or team, you possibly haven't had close one-to-one conversations with some of your coaches or your manager. Therefore, you've gone through a period of time where you've just let things drift. Is it quite easy to become reactive, especially if you go through a period where you lose form or the team's struggling as well?
Yeah, no, massively. I think you can find yourself. You know, I've always tried to say, like, I try to ground myself in hard work. But absolutely, there's times in my career where, you know, your form wasn't great or the team wasn't playing well, and you just work harder. And sometimes that's not the answer. Actually, trying to relax and trying to distance yourself from the sort of the weekly battle is interesting. So yeah, I think there's pros and cons to it. I mean, and I think what you've got to try and do is, as long as you've got a decent set of processes in terms of if it's a closed skill like goal kicking, or if it's a preparation, or it's part of your weekly routine, then as long as you sort of they're aligned with what you're trying to do on the weekend, then that can't do you any harm. I think the one thing is you don't want to do is just flog yourself sake, because sometimes you try and control the uncontrollable. Certainly in your career, you try and sort of, you worry about the what ifs or the potentials or whatever it may be. So they're the things you've got to try and distance yourself from, which is very difficult, especially, as I said before, when you've got so much pressure on you to perform and there's a lot of people watching at home, and you sort of think about potential other people's thoughts and processes, you know, in the stand or whatever. So you've got to be very, very sort of conscious and very sort of sure in your own ability at times to be able to disregard those.
I found that when you go kind of lower down the leagues, you have to be able to take it. You have to, because you're going to get, like we spoke about before, they're more experienced. All the pros who are very old school, they'll give you it. They're not afraid to tell you something. Like, they'll give you it even if you are doing the right thing. They've been brought up getting shouted at, getting pushed.
It's a real roller coaster. I remember I worked with Justin Walters. He's a South African guy on the European tour, and he had a really difficult year last. He lost his father. He got injured. He missed a lot of the big tournaments. With about 4 events to go, he was about 150th on the rankings, and he needed to make more money in the last 4 events than he had done all year. And the way he responded was amazing. He kind of, all of a sudden, he was more open to things, and he finished in joint tied third and kept his card. And so that was an amazing experience. Like, from all the highs and lows, he came out and there was a real high. And then, you know, there's guys that have, like, my brother, for instance, Chris Paisley's, I've been with him from missing his tour card to, I remember one year he held a 20-footer in Hong Kong on the last green to keep his card. If he missed that 20-footer, he would have lost his card.
there's been a culture developing in the deprived areas that there's no hope and there's no way out of here. And even if I worked hard and studied, there isn't a job for me. If you have that mindset, that's what's going to happen. There won't be a job for you. But there are people even in those areas who say, hang on, if I don't do this, I don't stand a chance. I'm going to give myself the very best chance I can. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to believe I can do it. I'm going to develop abilities and believe in my abilities. And I might have to take a few risks to get where I'm going. That's mental toughness. Mental toughness will help people to prosper even in the most negative situations. It doesn't always work, but you get a much better chance of success if you adopt the elements of mental toughness.
You take yourself through the whole race, but in minute detail. So I would visualize myself putting the goggles on, the wetsuit on, lowering myself into the water, listening to my heart beat as I'm waiting for the horn to go off. As soon as the horn goes off, I can visualize myself going through the water. But the thing is, when you do a visualization, everything is perfect. Everything. So I didn't get punched. I didn't get kicked in the swim. I did the swim. I was swimming like a fish. It was amazing. I'd come out of the swim. I'd grab my bike and I'd set off on the bike and I could feel the wind going through my hair on the bike. But again, everything is perfect. The chain doesn't fall off. You don't get a puncture. You don't go wrong. You brake at the corners. You come off the bike. You wrap the bike. You're on the run section with your trainers on. And again, you can feel the sweat. You can feel your lungs. You can feel your heart beating. But everything's perfect. You can see yourself, feel yourself overtaking people. Winding, winding, you can see the finish line and crossing that finish line and punch in the air and triumph. And just having that immense euphoria that everything was perfect. That's when I would open my eyes and I'd go, wow, that was such a rush. That was awesome. And I'd be smiling and I'd grab my bag and I'd go down to the start line, almost skipping. And people would go, Steve, are you okay? Why are you smiling? What's going on? I said, I've just done the race and it was awesome. And they go, what do you mean you've just done the race? I go, well, I just visualized it. It was amazing. I want to do it again. I really want to do it. And everybody else is really nervous and they're looking at me smiling and that makes them even more nervous, my competitors, which is great. So, it's about doing that visualization, putting yourself in a good place. But I'd use that as an elite athlete, but I use that a lot now. If I'm driving towards doing a big gig as a motivational speaker, yeah, there's a little bit of nerves there. You're going to be on a stage. You're going to be performing in front of people. Is the tech going to work? Are you going to get there on time? What's the traffic going to be like? There's lots of things that make you nervous. And you start thinking about all those negative things. So what I do is I do the visualization. I start thinking about the positive. Do you know what? I will get there on time. The technology, it will work. It will be perfect. The stage will be fine. The mic will work. They will laugh at the right times. They will cry at the right time. They will clap at the end. I will even get a standing ovation. And it sounds like I'm being big-headed, but why not? Why put negative thoughts in your head? If you have a choice of negative and positive, why not put the positive thoughts in your head? Whatever will be, will be. But you may as well not think about the negative before it's even happened. So that's what I do a lot. I do a visualization every single morning now about my day ahead and even about my future goals.
You've got to learn to stand up for yourself in the correct manner. Just don't accept things. Be open and honest. Coaches are, their doors are always open, just to chat and then having the courage to go and chat. Often I think, looking back on my time, like I said before, I just accepted things. I didn't really have the courage to go and talk to manager. I didn't have the courage to go and talk to coaches or anybody. Men at the end of the day who, it's this stigma that we have that, we can't be open and honest. Well, if you're not open and honest first with yourself, but then with other people, then, you're never going to get anywhere. Having that courage to talk, just to get things off your chest. Because there is, some unbelievable people in academies who are there to support you. It might even be your teammates. Just go and talk to your teammates. Go and talk to your mum. Go and talk to your dad. Because as soon as you start talking, there will be people there to help you get through whatever you're facing, whether it be a professional problem or a personal problem. They will help you, and it's a big thing that I try to tell our guys out here in Phoenix is that we are always here. If it's 10 o'clock at night, you want a phone call because something's going on with you and your missus, or there's something playing, just pick up the phone and talk. And I think that's my biggest advice to people facing adversity.
So a good example recently was Qatar, the last tournament before the lockdown. I was hitting the ball pretty rubbish, and we were on the range on the Tuesday, and I was videoing my swing and trying to work out what was going on, and I was trying to hit these perfect shots, and it just wasn't happening. And I just turned around to Jason, my caddy, and said, like, if I try and go into this week, try and fix my swing and hit perfect shots, I just know we just haven't got enough time to do that before the tournament starts, and I just know I'm going to play crap. So what we're going to do is just every shot, just be really committed to hitting a big shape, no matter what it is. And so we're on the range, and he said to me, all right, now hit like a 10-yard fade with your driver. And I hit this perfect 10-yard fade. And we got a 7-iron out, and he said, all right, now hit a low draw. And I hit a perfect low draw. And we hit all these different shots. And I think just because all of a sudden I'd become focused on the kind of ball flight and the target, that took my kind of awareness away from my swing. And I started to hit all these really nice shots and started to get a bit of confidence. And that's what we did that week out in the course, is just every shot, just be really committed to a certain shape, and I ended up finishing like 7th or 9th or whatever it was that week.
So what you would do is, in a journal, on a bit of paper, when you're critiquing a performance or critiquing the way you're going about your business on a day-to-day basis, start with start. What is it you need to start doing in order to achieve your goals? And get some little bullet points, have a brainstorm. Then go with stop. What is it you need to stop doing to be effective? Again, have a little brainstorm there. And then lastly, continue. What is it you're doing quite well at the moment? What do you need to continue? Now, I really like this approach because of the wording. Some people advocate looking at 3 positives, 3 good things about your day or your situation, looking at the areas of improvement or your weaknesses. I'm not so keen on that one. The word weakness and improvement can actually evoke the wrong kind of emotion. At least for some people it does. You find some people can be very, very self-critical, and they find it really, really difficult to look at the positives of situations, because for years and years they've just chosen to focus on the negatives. In a way, they've chosen to try and chase perfection, which, let's face it, doesn't exist. And then they would look at action plans as well. For that reason, I quite like this start, stop, continue idea, just because the wording isn't so strong. And what you find from performance profiling is that it's a really motivational process. It makes you dream to look at the long term and then make those dreams become reality. It can get you really pumped up and raring to go. You also learn a lot about where your strengths lie and where you're slightly weaker and what you need to improve upon, which is really, really helpful for any athlete, because it makes you realise where you need to spend your time and really improves your decision making and potentially the way you go about your practice or training.
I'll visualize most of it. There might be times where just close my eyes for 5 minutes and just visualize passing, kicking, tackling, whatever. Yeah, and I think I did have that a lot as a younger boy, especially when we go back to that sort of tackling thing. You know, I was like, right, this is how I'm going to hit somebody, this is what I'm going to do, or this is the pass I'm going to run. And it was almost that sort of started to bring you into the game, and it started to get your mind and your body focused on what was about to expect. So yeah, absolutely, huge amounts of visualization.
I suppose the lesson there is visualization, and the way you go about it helps your confidence and reduces the anxiety, so you can go out and do your stuff on the pitch ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the more you spend in this, you're chatting to people like yourself or others, you know, the mind does struggle to distinguish between your mental imagery and actually doing it for real. And I think that's a really big thing. I'm sure there was a Freddie Flintoff talked about that. You know, his body started to let him down. He would bowl more in his head and less on the field because his head, you know, he managed to teach himself this is okay. And it's been a little bit of that. My goal kicking, I can't kick for an hour and a half, 2 hours as I used to as a kid. I have to sort of put the pressure on by fewer balls and make it much more high pressure and more game realistic, but I also kick another 20 or 30 in my head after the session, just sitting there, just having a little think about it. Be
humble, which is something that I believe a lot of young footballers do get carried away with. Example, signing your first professional contract, because at an age of 17, 18 or something, you're probably going to get, if you're getting a decent amount of money at that age, you can easily go and spend it on nice cars and stuff. Remember where you came from, and don't get carried away with stuff that you haven't made it. When you get your scholarship or when you get your first contract, you haven't made it. Like, football's a very short career and people don't realise that. So that would be my first point. Second one would be simply work hard and make sure you're doing something every single day to kind of progress each kind of day and get to your end goal, whether that be play in the Premier League, play for your country, etc. Set your goals and just focus on that each day.
Your practice should be promoting good technique, but it should be promoting confidence, resilience, and that optimism that you can go and play well and it can't just be, if I get my golf swing or my putting stroke technique to a certain point, then it can never let me down. I think that used to be, maybe 10, 20 years ago, if you worked hard enough and you hit enough balls, you would have a swing that could do the right thing all the time. But yeah, I think if you're practicing with good attitude and it's promoting the right mindset every time you practice, I think that's where the most effective practices come from.
I don't know about you, but I think there are so many amazing pieces of advice in there, and hopefully hearing them so close together, you're going to leave this episode filled with lots of motivation, inspiration and knowledge so that you can spend your time more effectively, focus on the right things and work towards achieving your goals much faster. Next week we'll get back to normal and I'll be interviewing another fabulous guest. Have a great week. I'd like to give a big thanks to today's sponsors. Functional Intelligent Training, who are a sports injury clinic located in Gosford near Newcastle upon Tyne and specialise in athlete development, nurturing future champions, strength and conditioning support and excellent rehabilitation services. Thank you for listening to Demystifying Mental Toughness today. To sign up for tips and advice to help you be the best that you can be, go to www.sport-excellence.co.uk and sign up to the Mental Edge newsletter.